this discussion around how to land a job at a startup, which features Doug Galen, who's a Washington University parent. I'll introduce Doug in a minute, but want to welcome not only our St. Louis Entrepreneurial Fellowship students to the session today, but also members of our community, students and some staff from around the university who are joining us to participate in the discussion as well. So really excited to hear from Doug. We were able to do an event like this in person a couple years ago because fortunately for us, Doug's daughter, Jessica Galen, is a Washington University student. And for those of you who've been involved with programs like TEDx, Jessica Galen's one of the people who brought that program into the fold and has led that over the years. So excited to see what they may be coming up with down the line. And certainly we learned a lot from the sessions that they held previously through that program. So Doug is a lecturer at Stanford University, but also a founder, a CEO of companies over a nice career history. Currently, he's working or has launched a company called RippleWorks that does social venture engagement, brings Silicon Valley expertise into some of those social ventures, bringing a nice mindset towards social impact and investing towards startups and nonprofits that are trying to impact the world. Doug's been really helpful for us as we think about what we're doing here in the Scandalaris Center and across the university around innovation and entrepreneurship. The plan for today is to have about 15 to 20 minutes from Doug, where he's going to share an overview on this concept around landing a job or an internship with a startup. Given his experience working with so many different companies, he has some great things to share. A little bit of that will be a perspective from Silicon Valley as well, where Doug has spent his time in his career. And then we have time built out for questions from the audience. When you have a question, just pop that into the chat, and Jessica Weldon, who's the assistant director for the Scandalaris Center, will call on you and give you a chance to ask a question. When you do have a question, be sure to introduce yourself, and that can just be your name and major, and then ask your question. That will give Doug some context about who you are and where your questions might be coming from, to give him some context and how to respond to that. And I should do a good job of setting the tone for introducing yourselves, and I did not, because I did not introduce myself to lead us off. My name is Tu Luscri, Tu like the number 2. I'm the managing director of the Scandalaris Center and the assistant vice provost for innovation and entrepreneurship here at WashU. So really excited for the talk. I'm going to turn it over to Doug. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, Tu. Hey, everybody. It is a pleasure. Jessica, I hope you're doing your homework. That was to my daughter. And great to see some other friends and faces. Everyone click on the bottom at the reactions button. And if you are a senior, click the clap hand. If you're a junior, click the thumbs up. If you're a sophomore, click the heart. And if you're a freshman, click the laughing face, just to get a quick idea of who's all here. Wow, that's some from freshmen who are focused. I like that. All right. Great. So senior year for me, I went to Berkeley. Worst interview ever. I was, we live about 30 miles south of San Francisco. I had to drive into the big city, a little scared, not gonna lie. I had to put on a coat and tie. It was an interview with a company called Hellman and Friedman. It was set up by a family friend. And I thought I had a shoe-in because I was meeting with Hellman, like of Hellman and Friedman, and it's an investment company. And I went in, I sat down with Mr. Hellman, and he said, "So what do you want to do?" I said, I want to help any way I can. I just want to learn." "Well, that's great. What would you like to do?" "Anything you need me to do." "Okay. Well, what skills do you have?" "Well, you know, I've been in some clubs and I've done a little bit of this. I'm kind of a generalist. I can do a little bit of anything." "That's great. But what can you do?" "Well, you know, whatever you need me to do." "Okay. Well, why are you interested in my company?" "Well, I hear it's a really good place to work." Okay. Well, what about my company are you interested in?" "Well, you've bought some cool companies." "Oh, great. Could you name a couple?" "I'm not exactly sure." Interview lasted about 15 minutes. and it was through a family friend. And I get chills right now thinking about that story. It was the worst. And because of that, I became a student on good interviewing. I never wanted to go through that experience again. So if anything I do today helps you to avoid that experience, I hope so. Now, we got to get a few myths taken care of up front about Silicon Valley. So first of all, is Silicon Valley really like the HBO series Silicon Valley? Kind of is. It's crazy. It is a crazy place. It's not all like that, but it kind of is. Next is Tesla like the Lululemon status symbol of rich venture capitalists? Or does everybody drive a Tesla? Everyone drives a Tesla. It's kind of crazy, but they're everywhere. And then the last one is a common question is, does everybody start a company in a garage and smoke weed? Well, not quite. So that one's a little, that's not quite everybody in California. So just want to, if you were worried about that, set that aside. What I want to share with you is 4 things. Figuring out what you want to do, helping you figure that out. I want to share some thoughts about getting ready for a job search. I want to share a little bit about reaching out to people in companies, and then the actual interview. And then lots of time for questions, because I'm not a big fan of just talking. So Tu mentioned that I teach entrepreneurship at Stanford. I've had 3 careers. The day I graduated from college, I didn't have a job. And I turned out okay. So I just want to let you know it's okay that you don't have to have everything all figured out. I didn't know what I was going to do. My first career was investing in real estate for a company. I was not the investor. I didn't have that kind of money. And I did that for a while, and I got tired of buying things and I wanted to build something. And so I left real estate and wanted to start building internet-based companies. And that's where I've spent a big part of my career. I built 5 companies from either the ground up or near ground up, where I've been part of the leadership teams. Totally fun. I found my jam. I think it was the greatest thing to be able to build companies from small to big. Some of them were super successful. We had IPOs. 2 of them went public. One you may have heard of called Shutterfly. Another one's called eLoan, which is a fintech company. I was an early employee at eBay, which grew up into a big company. And I was part of a complete failure called Fourth Fleet, which just went nowhere. And it's an interesting story as to what I learned about myself on that, if we come back on that one. And then it was a conversation and process with my daughter, Jessica, about what I wanted to do with my life. And I realized that I wanted to change my focus. I was encouraging Jessica to think about what's the difference you want to make in the world, and to pursue her dreams. And I was working at a venture capital firm, at a firm backed by really famous venture capitalists, where we were improving the shopping experience when you walk into stores. I didn't feel very purposeful. So I left that company, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I took some time, and I realized what I loved was helping other entrepreneurs, but I wanted to help entrepreneurs who were trying to make the world a better place. So my very first company that I worked on, Chris Larson and I, we started RippleWorks. And RippleWorks actually spun out of a cryptocurrency company called Ripple. And we're a private foundation that supports other social ventures around the world. And we work in 60 countries with about 120 ventures. We provide expertise, we provide funding, and we do workshops for the leaders of these companies. So that's just a little bit about my background, which is a handful of careers, time changes. In all cases, there was one thing that was consistent in my decisions. It was following my passion. When I got bored with real estate and I realized I wasn't happy, I listened to my gut and I changed into doing something around building digital companies. At the end of my digital company career, my gut was telling me there's more purpose in life. And so I started my third career, which was building the RippleWorks Foundation and teaching at Stanford. And it was listening to my gut when things felt wrong that I made a change. Now, there's one little part in all of this that I think is worth sharing, is it's all about the decisions you make in life. And in my case, it was having the guts to make these changes. But the one decision that I made by far that was the best in all of this was my wife, who was there to support me through all of these decisions that were really hard for me to do, to have the courage to make these changes. So with that, I want to talk about what I've learned about interviewing and getting prepared and thinking about the types of things that we need to do to be able to figure out what we want to do. So I want to share a few thoughts about, just trying to figure out what it is that you want to do, because we've got freshmen, sophomores, a lot of freshmen, sophomores, and some juniors and seniors. So I try to keep tabs either on my phone, or if you like to write things out, but of anytime you hear of a company that you just think is cool, and write it down, because you will, if you keep writing down companies that are cool, you will likely see a pattern at some point of things that interest you. Maybe it's Sephora, and then the next thing you know, you're writing down another company about fashion. It could be you write down Peloton, and the next thing you know, you write down Fitbit. And the next thing you know, that you're kind of interested in fitness. And so I encourage people to just start to take inventory of companies that interest you. The next thing that I suggest is anytime you hear of a friend who has a job that just sounds cool, doesn't matter what company it is, you just find yourself going, wow, that's kind of cool. Write that down, because you may learn one of two things. One, you may learn of cool companies that you want to go explore. The second is you may just learn about cool jobs, like someone does social media marketing, and you wrote down 3 names of people, totally different companies that are doing social media marketing, like, oh, maybe I like that. Or it could be design, or it could be data management, or whatever. And the reason I say this is it's just helped to develop. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. I didn't have a job. Most of us don't know exactly what we want to do. Some of us have, we all see our friends who say, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go be a doctor. That's great. That's 15% of the world. And then there's the rest of us who don't know. And so I try to find little ways to help myself figure out what it is I want to do. Then I think about, in terms of your priorities in selecting a company. And I have 4 priorities that I think about when selecting a company. The first is geography. Do you have a need from a geographic standpoint? There will be a post-COVID world. We will actually go back into offices. You will care about geography. So is that important to you or not? The role, what is the role? Have you figured out what it is that you want to do? The manager, is he or she going to be someone who's going to support you and figuring that out? And then the industry, what industry interests you? Now, if you don't know which industry interests you, then that's the whole idea of keeping this log. And the more that you can follow your friends or hear about cool companies, look at things online. If it's in Snap where you're getting the news feeds of, oh my God, you're really interested in what Disney just did, then okay, maybe that's something that you should be listening to. But try to read and catch how you're reacting in terms of figuring out what it is that you want to do. I know you're going to have a bunch of questions on this, because this is a really tough area, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of framework. Now I'm going to move to getting ready for your search. The first thing is your story. And what do I mean by your story? Remember how I said in my interview, I didn't talk about any of my skills. I didn't talk about any of the things that I'm passionate about. You need to be able to tell your story. Now, you may say, I don't have a story. I don't know how to connect the dots and create a story. I could play a game with every one of you that if you told me your background, I could connect the dots and create a story for you. We all have a story. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious. Let me give you an example. Sophomore year, between my sophomore and junior year in college, I worked in construction. I was out on building an office building, working on cement, 100 degrees, hot as heck, and hardest job I've ever had. And I knew that I wanted to go into business when I was graduating. How the heck do those two relate? Here's how I connected the dots from construction when I was doing interviewing for business. I personally had a very hard experience in that construction job. Everyone on the job did not like me. I had never faced that before. I'm a nice guy. Why don't these people like me? Turns out that I was a college kid. I had taken the job of someone who wasn't a college kid. I was there for the summer, and a laborer lost I took the job of someone else who really needed the work, and they resented me for that. I just worked my tail off and kept my mouth shut. By the end of the summer, they literally threw me a going away party when I left. One of my proudest moments ever is I just worked my tail off and I was able to convince them that I'm a good person through hard work, tenacity, thoughtfulness. And that has nothing to do with business. But in just telling that story, the interviewer who's interviewing me knows that I'm a hard worker, I'm tenacious, I overcome obstacles. And that's interesting to that interviewer. And that's actually what I think I bring to the business world is you give me a problem, I will overcome it. Nothing will get in my way. I will work harder than anyone else. And I just shared my story on how I did it. And construction has nothing to do with business. So figuring out your story is really important. The second part for getting ready for your search is LinkedIn. LinkedIn profile matters. Building up your connections matter, especially in a startup. Startups hire pretty fast. They don't do extensive, they want to make decisions. Startups are all about making decisions really, really fast. And so they're going to figure out how can they learn about you the quickest. And LinkedIn is a really good way to know if you're networked and who you're associated with. So I encourage you to build your profile and start linking into people. And that would be my third piece, which is think consciously about building your network on LinkedIn. It's never too early to start doing that. All right, so we've talked a little bit about giving you a framework to figure out what it is you want to do, a little bit about getting ready for your search. The third part is reaching out to companies or individuals. So let me tell you just briefly what I look for when someone reaches out to me. And I probably get someone reaching out to me every day of the week, most likely, maybe 4 days a week, but there's always someone trying to reach out to me for a job or something. The first thing I look for is, have you done your homework? Going back to that interview I did in San Francisco, dressed in the suit, and I hadn't done my homework, worst feeling in my life. So know something about my company if you're reaching out to me. Give me a tidbit. Tell me something that shows that you've done your homework. The second is just give me a sentence or something on why you're interested in my company or this role. Don't make it generic. Just give me one sentence. And you know, it can be just about anything, but if it's just a form email, I'm probably not going to do anything with it. The other thing is put my company name in the note, so I know that it's not a form email. And then show some passion. Show that you really want it. It's okay. Put it out there. I'm really excited about your company. I love what you do. You know, the next thing that I would do is, after that's kind of around the communication, is if there's any way to get referred into the company, do what you can. That's why the LinkedIn profile is helpful, as well as your alumni. WashU has a great alumni network. Have no fear to leverage it. The alums want to help you. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're giving back. So that's how you get ready and start reaching out. Get referred, take your time to build a smart email. That should do it. There's one secret of all secrets that I found to be really powerful. It's called the informational interview. Everyone's heard of it. All you do is just ring someone up, or drop them a note and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about what you do at your company. I'd just love to learn more about your role and who you are and what you do. It is a great way to get in the door, because the person who you're reaching out to feels no pressure to do anything for you. They don't feel any pressure that they have to give you a job, and they feel flattered that you reached out to them. If you do your informational interview well, at the end of the interview, they're going to start thinking about, how can I help this person get a job, either at my company or who do I know? So remember the informational interview secret. Okay, I'm going to spend just a minute on the interview, and then we'll open it up for questions. And I know some of you have already submitted some. So on the interview, super fast. Direct answers. Have a point to your answer. Give enough, but don't go too long. Don't try to wander in your answer in terms of what you give. Let them get to know you a little bit. Don't throw jargon words into it if you don't really know what they mean. It just doesn't sound good. And if the interviewer doesn't even understand what you're saying because you're throwing in jargon, it just doesn't help anybody. They won't get to know you. If all else fails, a way to win over an interviewer, come with great questions. Take the time and have a list of questions, because it shows you did your homework, you care, you're inquisitive, you're curious, you have no fear to ask questions. These are the things that really impress an interviewer. And then I would practice a little bit. I'm really uncomfortable practicing. I've never been very good at it, but getting my story straight is really valuable. Thinking about the standard questions: what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Why are you here? Why did you pick WashU? Why did you pick your major? I mean, just think through the obvious things that people would want to know about you. So I hope I gave you some hacks on how to hack the interview. If it's informational interviews, it's about how to get the letter right. If it's how to work, how to figure out what organization you want, and how to approach the interview. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica, who can guide us through questions.
Absolutely. If you have a question already, go ahead and put it in the chat to me, and then I'll call on you, and we'll have you come off mute and ask your question to Doug. We'll give you just a second. Otherwise, I've got some other questions too. While we're waiting on the first question to come in, Doug, what characteristics should people be looking for in both a startup and the founder that they may be working with over the summer, if they're looking for, specifically a startup?
Yes. So for the startups, it's a crazy pace, and you got to want that. I happen to thrive on it. I love it. So what you want in a startup is They're building enough momentum around their product. So a pure startup that doesn't even have a product, it's going to be really hard for you. They're not going to be organized enough to give you good work. So you just want to make sure they're far enough along in designing their product. In terms of the founder, it depends how much interaction you're going to have. Rule one is if founder is an asshole, you don't want to be part of the company. So, and you can read about people usually if they're not good people. So I would just avoid those. Otherwise, from a founder perspective, the best scenario is someone who has done it before. If they're a first-time founder, then, and there's not a lot of management around him or her, then it's going to be, the odds of you having a good experience go down.
Good, that's very helpful. It looks like Joel has a good question. Joel, you want to come off mute and ask your question?
I asked, what is the best way to craft a story?
I think it's two parts. I think there are a couple parts, Joel. There's the first is what feels authentic to you. So find something in your story that is meaningful to you. That's one side of the story. You know, my example of overcoming the people disliked me in construction. That was one side of the story, and I don't see a bridge to the other side right now. The other side of the story that you want to bridge to is, do you have an idea of where you want to be? The company, the role, anything. Once you have those 2 points, then you can start to dream about how would you build the bridge between point A and point B. Let me give you an example, another example real quick. I remember my career one was real estate, and I wanted to bridge into building digital companies. I'm not a technologist. I'm not perceived as knowing anything about technology, but I wanted to be in technology. I knew real estate cold and I was good at it. What I realized is, so that was point one, is that I was really good at negotiating and putting deals together in real estate. Point two was I wanted to build a digital company. The connection turned out to be that I know how to do good deals in real estate in the old world, and I can bring that to the new world of digital. And that was the bridge that I created for that story.
Great, those are great examples. Surreal's got a question for you. Surreal, you want to come off mute and introduce yourself and give us your question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Surreal. I'm a psychology major from St. Louis. I just wanted to know, like, how did you build your resume when when pursuing these startups? Like, what kinds of activities did you gravitate towards to make yourself kind of a appealing candidate for these startups?
Good question, Surreal. What I would say is any extracurricular that you are doing that follows a passion. So I don't, life is short. I don't really encourage putting things on the resume, going out and getting resume fillers that don't interest you. Your life is busy. You don't have enough time. But if you're passionate about, I don't know, flower arrangements, or if you're passionate about community service, or if you're passionate about rugby, I mean, show any interest on anything, and then build your story about how that connects to what you're trying to be. What we're looking for in young people looking for jobs, college-age people, is that you've shown leadership, that you've shown a commitment to anything, that you've shown a passion to anything, that you're trying to better yourself. And you can do that in any of those ridiculous examples I gave. I have no idea where rugby or flower arranging came from, but that's what you get with me. Did that help, Surreal?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Nidhi's got a question.
Hey, my name is Nidhi, and I am planning on studying math and American culture studies. I'm from Bloomington, Indiana. And my question was, I know that you talked about informational interviewing. What kind of things should you strive to do in those informational interviews to kind of like build a good connection with the person that you're talking to?
Um, the I think there's two things. The first is genuinely be interested in their job. What do you do? What's your day to day? What are you focused on this week? What are your priorities for this month? Show an interest in their job. That's one. Two, show an interest in how they got to this company, why they're at this company. Three, what do they love about the company? What's great about the company? And so you're just trying to learn their journey to see what of their journey applies to you. Is that helpful, or are you looking for more specifics?
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And Jake actually has a follow-on question to some of the informational interviewing line of questioning. So Jake, you want to come off mute?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Jake. I'm an economics major in the first year, and I'm from Livermore, California. Okay, let's see, where's my question? Okay, what have been some of your favorite questions you've been asked at the end of an informational interview or behavioral interview? You were talking about a list of questions to have ready, so I'm just curious, what have been some of your top favorites?
I'm going to honor the question and answer that, but it's not going to be a great answer. So I'll go to a better one, which is anything that throws me off, anything that just like, wow, that's unique, but it's not trying to be unique. It's not like I'm trying to come up with something silly, but it's something that shows you're really thoughtful. So you took the time to understand either my company or me or whatever. So it's a general answer. Some of the specific questions, I really like it when someone takes the time to ask me about business strategy. Like, why did you do something? You know, I think any question that starts with why versus how is a more strategic question, a little more interesting. You know, why did you do that? Not how did you do it? And usually those of us in our, you know, those of you in your 20s, 19, in your teens, it's all about the how. If you showing that you think about the why, man, you're pretty strategic, and that's interesting to me.
Great. One more in the realm of narrowing down where to apply and things like that. So Emily, you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, my name is Emily. I am from Austin, Texas, and I'm thinking of majoring in entrepreneurship and marketing. My question is, how do you narrow down and find the industries that you are really interested in?
So I don't, Emily, I don't know if you heard the first part where I think a lot about tracking your own interests. So if you're able to just watch yourself of what articles do you find yourself reading, what influencers are you following, are there any trends that you're seeing about yourself? Because I preface this with passion usually is the best way to go. And the reason passion is, you know, what you are passionate about is usually the best way to go is you will work harder because you really care about whatever it is. And I mean, look at this room right here, this virtual room. Everybody here is the top 10% of the top 10%. And so to stand out, you're not going to be likely smarter than somebody, but you're probably going to be more tenacious and more passionate. And so finding what that is for you increases your probability of success. That's where I would start. But that's kind of what I said before. Do you want to elaborate how that may not work, or how I could better answer that question?
I guess just like what type of experiences have you gone through that like really made you find what you're passionate about? Just like a little bit more information.
Yeah, and what year are you? Emily, what year are you?
I'm a freshman. Sorry, my audio's cutting out.
No problem. At this stage of the game, it's experiences. Go do things. There's no way that you should know the answer. And honestly, I didn't find my calling until the last 5 years. Just the last 5 years. It took me 3 careers. So it's all about the journey. All about the journey. You're not going to have the answer. So what you want is as many experiences as possible. So go try things. That's the number one thing. Is if you're kind of think marketing is interesting to you, go check that out. If you kind of think math is interesting, go check something out. That's how I would try to figure out what I want to do in my career.
Great. Kate, I feel like that maybe addressed the question that you had just put in the chat as well. Does it?
Yeah, it kind of goes along with it. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a sophomore studying English. I guess my question that kind of goes along with that was I feel like for me as a sophomore, it's kind of always I'm thinking about career goals in the back of my head, and kind of know that I'll tackle those when I get to them. But from your experience, when did you kind of start doing the first steps in the groundwork of this is what I'm going to do for my career when you're in your undergraduate years?
I'd say freshman, sophomore year is getting experiences doing anything, literally. I mean, so yeah, so just go explore whatever it is that you want. Go to, if it's join a club, go to seminars, any internship, it doesn't really matter. Junior year, if you're able to have an idea of industries that interest you, or jobs that interest you, an idea, it's not your final answer. You're not gonna have your final answer for a long, long time. I'm talking years. But if you have an idea, the junior year, the junior summer is a really nice opportunity if you have an idea to get an internship that maybe is a little more real. Like freshman, sophomore year, just do anything, be a volunteer. It just shows that you care about something and you kept yourself busy versus playing video games all day. So, and yeah, that'd be my answer.
Great. Then we have a couple of questions about sort of your career in particular. So Hiba, you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Hiba. I'm a freshman studying biology and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And I was wondering, how were you able to help startups grow to reach the level that they're at today, like Shutterfly? And what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I would say the second question interests me a lot more because it's more fun to talk about that. But if I had to honor your question about what did I add to the mix? I think what I added was probably in a couple of categories. One, I'm really good at putting together the partnerships necessary to scale a business. So at Shutterfly, I was able to get us in all the Target stores in the country. It sounds weird, but a lot of people go into stores to actually do digital photography. I was able to associate us with Baby Center, which is, anybody have a little brother or sister, you know your parents are going nuts when taking photos. And so there was an opportunity around that. I'm also able to think about strategy of where things are going. And then I build teams. I'm all about culture, and that seems to be, I usually partner up with someone who's more of a technical visionary, and I'm usually the one who's building the culture. So that, I think that's been my secret sauce. In terms of what advice would I give an entrepreneur, there's probably a few that come to mind, and I'll rattle them off. The first is, have religion about the problem you're solving, but be agnostic to the solution. Be super passionate of saying, I want to fix clean water in Detroit. And you don't care how it is. Is it a filtration system? Is it something else? And so you are open to solutions. Because what happens, the bad entrepreneurs get stuck and fixated on the solution, and they never iterate. And what happens is, there is no chance that an entrepreneur will come up with the right idea that's the first idea. It's the 100th idea. And so the best entrepreneurs are about iterating and testing as fast as possible. from the first one to the second one to the third one, because it doesn't happen until somewhere between 10 to 100. Last part is just grit. You're going to hear no, you're going to hear it doesn't work. And actually every time it doesn't work, you're getting closer to the right answer. So no can be motivation because you're learning what doesn't work, which gets you closer to what does work.
Great. And then Artorias had a couple of other questions as well. So Artorias.
Hi, Doug. This is Artorias, and I'm a freshman studying mechanical engineering and biomedical engineering, and I'm from New Jersey. So I'm very curious about your story, and then it's kind of it's very intriguing. So in your introduction, you said about your experience in many companies, and I'm very curious about like when you said the one company that were unsuccessful, then that you said you were going to discuss later. So I'm really curious, like what happened and what lessons that you learned, and also after that is that in your life you said you faced many decisions, and you made all of them right because of you know where your passion is. So on a personal level, I'm very curious, how did you find your passion?
So in the first one about the company that failed, this is good advice from my daughter, Jessica, who says, I have to mention Fourth Fleet, which was a big failure. And so well done, Jessica. The reason it was a failure was twofold. The first one was there was a strategic opportunity that I saw in the company. It was auto leasing. It had to do with leasing of automobiles. And the company before that I had done was called eLoan, which had done loans and included auto loans. We took it public. It was a huge success. And there was this one niche, and we created Fourth Fleet to take advantage of that niche. It was strategically sound. It made good sense. And what I realized is a year in, I was bored out of my mind. And the reason is I didn't care about auto leasing. And so it was theoretically interesting. It was strategically sound, but my God, I was bored crazy. And so the fun was starting the company, not the domain. Fortunately, I had a co-founder who loved auto leasing. And so he could continue with the company and I could back out. But the one lesson was being an entrepreneur is so hard. You have to dedicate yourself crazy hours. You better be passionate about it, because if you're not, I don't know that it will get you through the tough times. So I said there were two lessons. That's the big lesson. That's 80% of my lesson. The 20% of my lesson, which I should have known, is I picked the wrong co-founder. I liked him. I knew him. We had worked together. We weren't right for each other. And so knowing your co-founder, and that's a whole other topic about how to know your co-founder. You've got a few years maybe before you have to worry about that, but taking the time, going on walks, getting to know your co-founder outside of the domain area of what you're building is super important.
Great. That's all very good advice. As a lot of these students are looking for positions within startups, how might the recruiting process be different for a startup than a bigger corporation?
Couple things. It will be different. It'll be a little more crazy, meaning it just, you know, just not all the systems are built out. It's not all totally organized. Your hand may not be held through the process. It may be a little crazy. And so one, you have to put up with that because that's the fun that you get in being in a fast growing company that not everything is put together. Given that that could be the case, follow up with the organization if you're really interested in them. They get busy. The systems may not be perfect in managing the process. So I would encourage you, if you love the company or really interested, have no fear to follow up. The other part on recruiting is that LinkedIn thing I talked about. It's really helpful if you've got that. The last part is if you get referred in somehow, anyhow, your probability goes way up, because if it's a startup, I don't have a lot of time to pick who I'm going to hire. If you come from someone I know, and look, it sucks, it's privilege, yes it is, and we need to work on these systems. There are biases in all of this. That doesn't mean that you should not take advantage of referrals and references when you can.
Very good. Yes. Following along with that, once you're in and you're working for a startup, how might working for a startup be different than working for a big corporation?
Yeah, definitely going to be different. A big corporation is going to have a really organized internship program. You may have, a hoodie sent to you right out of the gate. You may have a bunch of emails coming to you outlining your experience. It will feel that you are well cared for. Probably a little bit like WashU. A startup is different. Hair's on fire. They got a million things going on all at once. And so they will last minute have things figured out. They'll have things figured out, but it will be last minute. So you have to be willing to accept that. But the B is be your own advocate. Ask to move things along, ask to participate, ask to sit in a meeting. Someone asked earlier, what's a favorite question of an informational interview? One of my favorite questions as a leader of a company is, can I sit in that meeting with you? Oh my gosh, that shows such initiative. And of course I want you to get the learning experience. So be your own advocate in a startup, and anything is possible because it's a really flat organization, and startups love helping and encouraging just about anything. So have no fear to ask for what would be helpful to you.
Definitely. I've definitely seen that working with startups for a long time. And then again, how can a student, especially an undergrad student, make an impact right away in a startup?
I think it's to ask how you can help, take on anything, be a problem solver. So you may run into problems, ask for help, and propose solutions. Say, I don't know how to solve this, but here's what I'm thinking, this, or this. My gosh, if you come to me with a problem and a list of solutions, I love you for that. If you are a self-starter, I love you for that. Because I don't have time to think of everything. That's the craziness. And then I think, like I said, the other is work hard. If I know you're going to get done what you said you're going to do, that's the best thing you can do for me.
Awesome. We've got time for a couple more questions. Any more questions?
Jessica, I want to add Jessica, I just want to add one more thing. You notice my answer to that wasn't about a specific skill. It's not like I'm the best at math, I'm the best at data, I'm the best at social media. It was this general set of things. You don't need to have the best skills at anything. You need to have a set of general soft skills, like I mentioned: tenacity, self-startedness, ability to follow through. Those are the things that people are looking for from college kids, college students, because we know you don't have all the skills yet.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. Absolutely. Last call for questions from the audience. Got time for a couple more. Maggie's got one more question for you.
Okay, I've got to go. I had questions, but you were answering them as you went. So it was going. Oh, by the way, I'm Maggie. I'm trying to do my intro. I'm from Woodstock. I'm majoring in entrepreneurship and international relations. And I guess it's like more of a general question because I'm trying to start like a smoothie business right now in like the AC. And I mean, one of the hardest things is when people come, and I had a meeting today with some people and they said, oh, this is going to be a financially pretty big thing. And like kind of making that decision of whether or not, to go ahead with the project. Like, what are some things that you might kind of go through in your head when you're thinking, okay, this project is worth it to do? Do you know what I mean? In a sense.
Yeah. It depends what your risk profile is. Like if you can take the risk and you can afford it or whatever, the first thing is follow your passion. That's one. It's just, what are you really excited about? If it's a smoothie business that you want to provide health for others, and you think the other smoothies don't use good quality stuff, and I want good quality, ingredients. So first is, passion. Second is, have you clearly identified a problem that you should exist? So there's a problem, and you think your solution can solve the problem. And then the last part is that you have tested it with people. You don't have to go fancy. You don't have to do build 100 smoothies at once. Build one. Go see how people respond to it. Test it. See if they'll pay for it. How much will they pay? If you're getting early responses, if you get bad responses, okay, make a change and then try it again. And then if you see that you're making progress, kind of called a flywheel. And if you can get this flywheel moving that is really hard to get momentum going, and you can see it starting to go, then you're on to something.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that does it for all of our questions. Doug, thank you so much. This was so enlightening. I really appreciate it. I think all of our students have really appreciated it. For everybody who's on the call, one quick reminder, we do have the upcoming Startup Internship and Job Career Fair. It will be virtual. It'll be March 9th, 3 to 6 p.m. Please join us. We'll have startups who are looking to recruit. So not attached to any specific program, but a great opportunity if you're looking for work now, summer internship, full or part-time work after graduation. Any last words from you as we wrap this up?
No, this was great. Doug, thank you so much. Appreciate you spending some time with us. And this was great advice that I wish I had earlier in my career, and excited for the students to have this as they embark on trying to find some great opportunities this summer and beyond. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
My pleasure, everyone. Love the questions, love the energy.
Great. Thank you all so much. Fellows, you have about a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene.
Take care.
Thanks.